In this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about how you can cut the time it takes for you to clear your type 1 and type 2 malfunctions in half. Very simply, the process is the same for both of them, whether it's a traditional clearance or, the method I'm going to show you here. So, traditionally, it was tap, rack, assess, and, incorporate a roll during the rack. Roll it out for gravity's sake, all right? What I'm advocating is taking out the tap part. The tap part there, and my own assessment from this, in my experience, the failure to have the magazines perfectly seated, or properly seated rather, is due to instructors teaching an old school method of loading, and a very relaxed method of loading that does not guarantee fully seating the magazine or even making it around into the chamber, or getting around into the chamber, or maybe around gets into the chamber, but it doesn't even get into battery properly because, the way they're loading it. So how can we fix this to the point where having the tap is unnecessary? Well, it's very simple. We're just going to lock the slide open before we insert the magazine. That's it. That is it. So, and we're going to use the slide stop instead of running the action. Alright, so here's how this works. Let's go ahead and look at the traditional method. First, you'd probably have an instructor or teacher, coach, whatever you want to call the yoo-hoo, give you a dry fire draw. You draw out, they want you to get your reps in, so you're going to do it dry. You know your gun's unloaded. Okay, then they tell you to load a magazine and, charge the action. Load a magazine or load the gun is basically what they'll say, which means put a magazine in the gun, charge the action. Well, what I'm advocating is changing that to get your dry fire draw in. Okay, lock the action to the rear. Now, load the firearm. That's what it should look like. Why? When you're doing it the old-fashioned way, there's three things that are going wrong right now. Number one, if you have a fully loaded magazine, like in a Glock or anything like that, or even most firearms, the first issue that we're seeing that necessitates the tap is people are pushing against the slide here. You're dealing with a slide interfering with the room that is left in the magazine. Not only the spring tension, but just the lack of room. And they're having to fight that to secure the magazine in place because the slide's closed. If you lock open the slide, you can have that thing fully loaded or fully unloaded or somewhere in between. It is the same pressure every time because the only pressure you're dealing with is lateral pressure from the magazine release. So there we just saved ourselves the problem of securing the magazine into the gun by locking open the slide. Next thing we're going to save by locking open the slide is people having a problem racking the action. If you've ever dealt with a fully loaded Glock, you're going to understand what I'm talking about here. So you get your magazine in. Now all we're going to do, we're going to hit the slide stop. But running the action, manually is the most reliable. No, it's not. I've actually done it myself and seen people do it in competition and even in training where there's no pressure except the pressure they put on themselves, where they're missing the action. Even though the slide is locked to the rear and they've inserted the magazine, they miss the action. And I can tell you, I am way more reliable by just putting the magazine in there and then, even without looking, I just roll up and I can find the button. It is so easy to do. And you're not really creating any adverse wear on these things. That's just, even any kind of wear that you're, creating, it's no more than the wear that you're creating on the magazine by loading ammo into your magazine. So, anyways, the next thing that you're preventing is when they do rack the action, what you're not going to get is people doing this. Riding the slide home. Now here with snap caps, Snap caps are very easy to feed. They don't really create much interference, but a lot of times what you'll see is people failing to even get the thing in battery, especially if they're new. Running the slide stop prevents that from being an issue. That way you can actually have everybody on the firing line load their firearm and not have to correct somebody's inability to load the firearm properly, because you have someone who wants to gingerly load the pistol and be very gentle. You have people that don't have the strength to rack the action all the way, so they might be partway there, but they just weren't able to do it. And so they still have an empty chamber. And then you have other people that will get it back, but they'll be so gentle on it and look the round into the gun, and then they cause, a jam up, and they can't actually force it forward. So this new loading procedure, it's not really new. There are teachers out there or there are instructors, teachers, coaches, whatever, who are teaching this method of locking the action open before inserting a magazine, or before taking out the source of feed if you're unloading. Very much like an MP5 or a G3. Think of it that way. Anytime you're going to be running the action, lock open the action before you do any of that. It makes getting the magazine in a lot simpler and puts it into action a lot faster. Okay? So that might be the best way to think of it. So now, the old school method of tap rack, I'll let you just do a comparison. I'll do a tap rack first, and then I'll go right into just doing the new version, just the rack. Half the time, perceptively for me, it took half the time to just do the rack and assess than it took for me to do the tap rack. You're taking out a step that is unnecessary if you teach people to load a pistol properly, or even a rifle. This even works with rifle. Lock the action back before inserting the source of ammunition. It'll save you time, it'll save you headache, and it requires a lot less work. So, with all that said, I appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below, and you guys have a good one.